Well, happy Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome to the program. How you doing? Just going through some stuff. My daughter was down here. I have got a package that came today. This is the Ancient Heroes cards, and Ellie wanted to open it up. So she's running upstairs and running back down. She wants to open it up and show you guys. So also at the same time, got another package. These all just hit my desk right now as I'm sitting down to do radio. I got my new mouse in, and it's not a chargeable mouse. It is, which this one is. It's my Apple mouse. This is a rechargeable one. You plug it in, but this one takes batteries, so I couldn't use the new one this morning yet. The old one's gotten kind of wonky, so I had to order a new one, and I thought I got the rechargeable one. I guess not. I got the battery operated one. So we'll see if that even works. And here's Ellie this morning. How you doing, Ellie? So how's everybody this morning? There's a little mundane for Sunday morning. Just stuff going on around here. Remember, if you're new here, Sunday morning show is very informal compared to our daily show during the week. And you see which way those go? It's got a little diagram etched in the bottom that you'll be able to see if you hold it in the light right. It'll show you which direction they go in. So very informal this morning, even more informal than informal. I can see you on our big TV, says Carlene. All right, Carlene, how big is your big TV? I am so lusting after the 86-inch TV that I saw at Walmart. It's a Samsung Roku TV, something like that. And it's, we are anti-formal, Curtis. That's right. It's Sunday morning. And so if this is your first time here, don't gauge Intrepid Radio by this particular show. This is just Sunday morning talk, and here, let's see. Let's get it turned on. Are you sure that's all in there, right? That seems kind of loose. Let's see what we get. Let's see if it even picks up this mouse, huh?
Maybe I put them in now.
You might have. We got the cats fighting beneath my feet. Oh, this little plate isn't even in. See? That's all got to be repositioned in there. So I'm not going to worry about the mouse right now. We'll maybe check that out. But my mouse has been going wonky. Where this thing, when I'm doing designing and stuff like that over in Photoshop, and it's and I will focus on something, then you're going to go click and it goes zing. The mouse goes off. So I spilled a puddle of coffee into it about 2 months ago, and it was all right. Well, it only hit for about a second, it seemed, but then of course, it just got wonkier and wonkier. So I put it up and I used the other mouse, and then I turned this one back on. It was okay for a while, and now it's not okay. So I had to order the new one. Well, that one's got power. It's just not picking it up yet. That's interesting, huh? I wonder why it's not seeing it. That should see that mouse. See, it says I got power. See, we got the little green blinky light going on up there. It's got power. So we've got to go in and configure it, I think, to be seen. So Carlene hung a curtain and putting up a ceiling fan today. Did you tell me a 60-inch? That's nice. All right, here we go. Here are the Ancient Heroes cards that we've been talking about for a long time. And by the way, we didn't even really do much of an intro, did we? We played the intro, and I said, good morning, and we started going. So,
These can open?
yeah, don't open that, though. Don't open that one. Did she send me a whole deck as well, or just all the packs? Okay, here we go. Yeah, so, Ellie, you can, if you want to do the honors, she sent me a whole Remember the Ancient Heroes cards? I've been advertising them because I illustrated these and designed the card, of course, and everything. And so so many packs will give you the entire deck. So easy. So I got a whole bunch of packs here. We're selling these for $8 a pack, $7.95, or $48 for the whole deck. So now Ellie has just opened this one. So there's one open pack. Let's see what we got here. Which cards do we have? Okay, this is Lot's Rescue. Remember Lot? And well, you see how glossy those things are. That's how these turned out. Lot, the nephew of Abraham, and he lived in the cities of the plains, Sodom and Gomorrah, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So I've got it there, and his wife, poor wife, turning to a pillar of salt in the background, and of course they all have the stories on the back, like this. Here, I should show you what some of these sound like. So here is the card of Lot's Rescue, it's called. And it says, boy, these are small for me. I need more light. I need more light on it is what I need.
I can read it.
You think you can?
Yeah.
Well, let's show them off before we read them all. Then we got, this is Moses in the Bulrushes. There's that card. And that's what the art looks like. I got to hold it at a bit of an angle because of the lights up here. So Moses in the bulrushes. So the young princess who finds him in the Nile in the basket. You can see, and that of course has its story on the back as well. This one has Moses, a prince in Pharaoh's court. So that's what that one looks like, and we've got him. You can see there's a little bloodshed in this one, if I can keep that light from shining, but there is. He's murdering the Egyptian taskmaster. That's Moses there in the middle with the red scarf on his head. And then his story is on the back, the story of that scene. And we've got, boy, a good at least 40 years later in Moses' life. Moses at the burning bush. There he's taking his sandals off of his feet. So remember, the voice, according to the story, came off and said, remove the sandals from your feet, for the place whereon you stand is holy ground. And that's got the story in that one. And, oop, you got me crowded. I can't turn. There we go. Then we've got Pharaoh, the Pharaoh of the Exodus. Now, in the original set of these 30 years ago, we had talked about Amenhotep II and the Pharaoh who I believe he was, and I believe there's very little doubt that that's who he was by history and the timelines and so on. But for this deck, we took those out. The decision was made to take out any controversy because there's still controversy over who the Pharaoh actually was. And but there you go. That's Pharaoh, I believe, who was Amenhotep II. That card, you can see how nice and glossy and UV coated and everything these are. These are great cards, premium. And then this one is Moses and Aaron. Before, it says challenge. I was trying to see what that said. Challenge Pharaoh. And this is where this is the first plague where they touch the rod to the water and it turns the water to blood. So you got Pharaoh and his entourage in the background there, and Moses and Aaron doing the dirty work. That the last one in that one? Oh, comes with 8 cards per pack. Or did you open a second one?
I opened 2.
Okay. Oh, you opened one. Okay. And then, of course, the typical Red Sea parting with the chariots of Pharaoh in there. I'm not sure what that would have looked like. That's an illustration I did 30 years ago. And like most of these, and all I did was touch most of them up, add new backgrounds to them, change the lighting, work on the color. Some I totally reconstructed, like the Burning Bush one was one I totally is a totally new one. There, that's a new illustration I did a few months ago for this deck. And some of these are old, like this one of a pharaoh. I did that 30 years ago. I did that rendering. And so this was an old deck, of course, if you remember, that we redid. This one's an old illustration. It was on a blank background. I just had like a yellow background or something. I'm trying to arrange these. Doing this backwards is weird. This is Miriam, and she sings that song after the closing of the Red Sea. So I've got the Red Sea behind her, and so what I did, I added a whole new background to this, illustrated this background, and threw it in there, and changed the lighting on her, the original illustration. So some of these were really old pieces of art, and so totally redid them. So this is how these cards look, and we still have. I say we. I'm not running the publishing company. That's my friends and their business that they do. But here's 8 cards out of that first pack. I thought that looked like more than 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nope. And so this is one pack that you would get. And so you can buy these by the pack, and they're $8 a pack. And then, or you can buy the whole deck. And you buy the whole deck, you would get a package like I just got, which is my partner Terry in this sent me all these. So you'd get all these foil packs. And when you open these all up, you'll have the whole deck of cards, all 48 different cards. And that's, I think, $48. It roughly works out to be about $1 a card. So, so that's how they turned out, and it's pretty cool, I think.
I dropped one of the cards in that bag.
Where did you drop it?
I don't know. It just fell down.
Did it end up in the garbage can? No. It would be right in the top if it fell in there. So you already lost one of my cards?
Yeah.
So there's one laying on the floor here somewhere. How's this for scintillating radio? Well, you're going to have to get a light and look. So, because it's actually a lot darker in here, folks, than it looks. So, here. We'll take a look and see where you may have dropped it. Can't be too far away, huh? There you go. Take that and look around. Kids. Not that adults don't drop things too. But there you go. That's the Ancient Heroes cards. And that's that deck. And if you remember the story, it was 30 years ago. It was 1993 that a couple of friends of mine from college, a friend of mine and his wife. What? You are... No, that's not for radio. No, you don't need to talk about that.
I can't find it.
Gross. So, yeah, you can't find it. You dropped it somewhere, but you can't find it. Oh, well. So, behind my desk, it'll turn up, folks. So, this card deck we did 30 years ago. They approached me and they said, would you work on us with doing a set of trading cards that is more biblically oriented, something that kids could connect to, like Batman cards or the Marvel DC cards and sports cards, but can we make them cool enough? And so I said, well, probably the way to do this is to not scream Bible with it. It's obviously a deck of cards about the Bible once you get into them. I said, but you do cool art. You write them in such a way that it's not your Sunday school fare, that it's maybe a little more meat to it. And I said, and then you package them well. And so we did these, the foil packs back then. And I did all the art. And it was all strictly watercolor back then. I wasn't doing digital art 30 years ago. And digital art was kind of in its infancy back in 1993. And so we did these cards. I mean, you could still do digital art. I did the logo, as you can see the logo at the top, the Ancient Heroes. This is the newer version. I touched it all up. It was a little blockier looking than that, but that was all done on the computer. But I didn't do digital illustrations so much 30 years ago. And so we put these cards out, and they did pretty well. And so my partner, old partner, Terry, she approached me probably 6 months ago now. It was in the spring, and asked if I'd be up for maybe refurbishing this deck, touching them up. And she originally just asked me if I had some of them still on file. And I said, I don't. I lost a disk drive years ago that would have been on a disk drive caved on me, and couldn't retrieve the information. And so I said, yeah, let me look at them. And so she sent what she could find to me. And we were only missing a few cards that I had to redo from scratch, which was okay. Like the Moses at the Burning Bush card. That's this one. I wish my lighting was a little better to show these off. But so that was one card that I completely re-illustrated for this deck just in the last few months. But then we had some that were completely... I wish I could show you the side-by-side of this. This card where I've got Pharaoh's daughter finding the basket in the Nile. Let me straighten that. It was a pretty bland card. There was no background. I had just a yellow sky. That was it, solid yellow. And there was the block wall off to the, if you're looking at this, it's on the left. And the two pillars were just blank pillars, and there was no background. So I illustrated the background, and I illustrated the pillars, the hieroglyphs on the pillars. And so I totally redid this card. So that's the kind of work I did on these, was taking the old illustrations and touching them up so they look cool. And some of these I totally redid, as I mentioned. And some of them I left alone, but not a single card that did not get refurbished. And I redid the logos and the design of the cards and all of that. And had some good suggestions on the writing, but this is something that was Terry's baby, was doing the writing on these. So we kind of let them be. But and she did all the touching up, and I made some suggestions and rewrote a couple of areas. But that's her thing. And if I could, I want to read you a couple of these if I can actually see them without going and hitting all of my lights. I might have to turn on the big lights to do that. So hang on a second. Let me do that. I'm going to turn on the big light. The big light. So the point is also that these cards are now available. My friends, they published these. They republished these now. They've just come out, as I've said. You see the new packs here. And they're solid cards. They're nice. They're thick, very high quality, high premium cards. So this is Moses in the Burning Bush. Oh, look, you can even see him a little better with the big light on. And this is how the writing sounds. It says, Moses in the Burning Bush. 4 decades had passed since Moses fled Egypt and the alabaster palaces of Pharaoh. Sinking into obscurity, feeling the wrath of Pharaoh, Moses spent the next 40 years growing older and living the quiet wilderness life of a shepherd. He learned patience, for a shepherd cannot control the natural environment that affects his flock. As a hot-headed prince, Impetuous Moses failed in a murderous attempt to free his kinsmen from the oppression of Pharaoh's taskmasters, resulting in his self-imposed exile from Egypt. But Moses was not finished. But God was not finished with Moses. One day, while Moses chased a stray lamb, he came across a bush on fire. His eyes widened, and he was utterly mystified when he saw that miraculously the fire did not consume the bush. Transfixed, he stared until a voice from the bush said, "Remove your shoes from your feet, for the place on which you're standing is holy ground." "Who are you, Lord?" was all Moses could croak out. "I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," the voice continued, and Moses fell to the ground and hid his face in reverence. "I hear the Israelites' groans. I know their sorrows. I'm sending you to bring them out of Egypt." God ordered, "Tell them, I am sends you." Although he protested in fear, Moses realized he could not resist God's intentions. So Moses' training was completed. He now knew that only God could deliver his people, and all he could do was obey. And so that's the way the cards are written. And then it's got at the bottom, after you've read it, there's 2 questions and scriptures that you can look up that back up the story and then the principle biblically of what's being said in the card. So, and there are some things that are more controversial that got left off of this deck, which is okay. You know, Terry didn't want to create controversy with these as much as tell the Bible story in a different way and try to put it into language in English that people would relate to. And so these are, I think, a lot of fun. They're very, I designed them to be interesting to look at, and they're designed to be easily read. And so now maybe I can show you a couple of these other ones. Let's see. What are some of these other ones like? How about this? I'm going to open one more pack. Let's see what we have in another pack. So this would be one pack that you'd get. These cards I just showed you. And this sounds like a big infomercial. It's really not supposed to be. I'm just kind of presenting these cards to you. So I took another pack. Let's open up another pack and see what's inside. Let's see what we got in this one. All right. This pack, it looks like it has David. Yeah, this is some of the cards on David, the king. And a little bit of Elijah is in here as well. So these are the 8 cards from this pack. And again, I do all the illustrations. I did the design work. And so we can take cards like, there's some, I think, some really interesting cards. Like we have David in the cave. We actually did a show on Intrepid Radio about life in the cave. And we drew some principle from that. So I've got David, as you can see the art there, he's sitting in the mouth of the cave, the sunlight coming in. And when he was in hiding in the cave, when he was running from Saul. And this particular card says, David in the cave. When he was hiding in the dark, dank cave of Adullam, a fugitive from King Saul who wanted to kill him, David sang to God. "Have mercy on me," he implored. "Have mercy on me, for I take refuge in you." That's one of the Psalms as well. Later, as king, when he brought the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, he sang and danced publicly to praise God. "Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the God of our salvation," he exclaimed. A gifted musician, David loved to write and sing songs to God. The Bible records many of them as psalms. David's melodic voice soothed others in distress. His ability was so well known as a young boy that King Saul brought him to the palace to sing for the king's benefit and pleasure. David's songs expressed a vast range of emotions: deep devotion, intense feelings, dark dejection, and exultation. And of course, when seeking God's security during his lengthy lost times of empty discouragement while living in a cave in the dark. And then there's a couple of, and it was during this period, by the way, in the biblical text, that it said that David, who was running from King Saul, he gathered to him all the dispossessed, all the outlaws, all those who were on the run, all those who owed money and couldn't pay it, and he gathered. It was almost like he became a Robin Hood type of a character. And he lived out in the Greenwood, if you will, like Robin Hood. It's kind of a bit of a parallel there. He ran to the Greenwood, which you don't think of Israel as being Greenwoods, but remember back in the day, a couple thousand years ago, it wasn't as it was a lot more green and lush in places than it became over the centuries, which Israel has now, as a matter of fact, reclaimed when they moved into the land 150 years ago. And so, but he gathered all these people to him, and he had 300 mighty men of valor, they called him, David and his mighty men of valor, that gathered around him. And so he lived in this big cave, and you can visit the cave. It's named in the scripture, the Cave of Adullam, and the Cave of Adullam, the location hasn't changed in centuries. It's still there. You can go see it. It's a big cave system. So this is a card of David in the cave. And life in the cave for him was one of being on the run, losing everything. But there are also some things that we didn't write about in the cards, which we have talked about, is that King David, before he was king, says he ran from Saul, that Saul went mad, and David became a target because Saul knew he'd been anointed king in his place by the prophet. They weren't going to depose Saul, but that Saul's sons would not go to the throne. His dynasty was dead after being the first king of Israel, and that David would replace him. And David still was this young man who had come in and slew the giant, and who got all these things the king promised, and was the captain of the king's bodyguard. And how do you have a captain of your bodyguard if you know the guy's been anointed to replace you? So there was weirdness, there was animosity, there was, but they lived by what the prophet said. And but then there was something David did, which is a little obscure when you read the Bible story. And yes, and as Matthew says, Jonathan was David's closest friend. Jonathan was King Saul's son, so he was the prince. And they were close friends, David and Jonathan. And I think even Jonathan acknowledged to David, yeah, if God's going to have you replace my dad, and I'm aware of it, and I'm good with it. So there's an obscure part of David's story that you've got to look at the language very closely. But keep in mind something. Do you remember when you read stories of historical conquest, where armies, and I'm talking historically, you can talk thousands of years ago, even hundreds of years ago, where I think it even happens to a certain extent today, where the victors will come and they'll raid and they'll rape and pillage. And it was no different, of course, back then, even harsher back in 3,000 years ago in David's day. But what did David do? He was to be the next king. And I believe it is very clear in the Bible that he slept with the king's wife, had an affair with the king's wife, the queen. Well, this is something that debased royalty in the day, back in the way that's monarchical system, patriarchal system, and monarchical. One way to show that the power of the king has been usurped by a conqueror is he takes his wives and sleeps with them all, wife or wives. Well, what did David do while he's living at the palace and one of the king's mighty men? He sleeps with the queen. And this thing becomes known. Well, why is he doing this? I think he wants it to be known because this is showing the weakness of the king. He's establishing himself as having power over an inept king, an inept, impotent king who does not have the power from having him sleep with his wife. Now, does that sound like this beautiful, biblical, wonderful man after God's own heart that the Bible talks about? No. But these were also human beings. We're also always shown the flaws of these people. And there's one book that talks about the deeds of David in the books of Samuel, 1st and 2nd Samuel, that are almost written as an apologetic of David. David did no wrong. David was pure of heart. Any of the murders that went on around him were not him. He was always somewhere else. All these political murders and things like this. And yet in the other books, the Chronicles of the Kings in the Bible, in the Old Testament, the books of Kings, the books of Chronicles, they list things that you don't find in the book of Samuel. And one of them is this idea that David was stooping the queen. And so what would happen? Why would Saul want to take his life? Because that's what you did in those days. If you did that to the king, if you slept with the king's wife, oh my God, that was declaring war on that king. And so when Saul was out to get David, he was out to get David because David violated a law and a principle of kingship in those days. And so David really stuck his head out on the block with that one. But David was trying to rush God, if you will, trying to rush the situation. He's taken over and he's showing how inept the king is. Well, the king tried to spear him in front of the whole court, and David runs. And Jonathan warns him at one point and says, you got to run. And that's when David ran, and that's when he ends up in the cave and in hiding. He was in hiding for, I think, about 3 years, something like that, and maybe a little bit more in that. And during that time, he gathered all these men to himself that supported and were loyal to David, and built his own little army. And by the time Saul dies, then David is elevated to king, and he returns to Jerusalem. And that's one of these other cards here. This is when he brings the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, and he strips naked, the Bible says, meaning down to his loincloth. He wasn't going naked in front of all the people, but danced all the way from the gates of the city to the temple or the mount where they had the tabernacle of the covenant, the tent, elevated there, and he danced and led the ark into the city. And so that was very different from hiding in the cave. You've got the story of David and Bathsheba. And so I've got Bathsheba here. She's the wife of one of his captains, and they're at war. And David's at home, and he sees her bathing from his rooftop. And of course has her called in, and they do the thing, they do the deed, and there's a whole story behind that. Do I have any others from? There are more cards for the life of David, but just a few of them in this deck. It's mixed in with others. Then I've got Abigail and Nabal. You remember the story of Nabal? David, when he was fleeing, he was basically doing what you might consider, if you look at this in the cities nowadays, if a gang came to your place of business, your store, and said, you give us so much money per month, we'll make sure nobody messes with you. We'll take care of you. You know, this is kind of what David was doing. It was vigilante justice out there. And he was protecting this man's flocks, and they came in to get a little payment. Now, Nabal had never hired them, but David was there, and they had run off the bad guys trying to fleece them. And this story is, you watch even a movie, a story like Rob Roy, and that's what Rob Roy was doing. They were protecting the flocks of the Marquis of Montrose. And so Nabal was a rich dude who was like, I ain't paying you nothing. I never asked you to do this. Yeah, he did it. David did it with his men. I didn't ask you nothing. And so David leaves. But then he returns with all of his men. They're going to wipe out Nabal. As you know, when you think about it, is this the way now, David, this is pre-Christian, but Judaism led into Christianity. Was this the way you would think of a Christian living or a godly person living? I'm going to kill you and your family and burn down everything you own because you didn't pay me what I think I'm owed. But of course, you didn't hire me either. I appointed myself. So, Nabal told him no, and so David's going to come and wipe him out. Well, his hot young wife, Abigail, who we've got in the background there, she heads David off at the pass. She hears they're coming. She gathers all this food and gold and stuff. They put it on donkeys and they head out, and she meets David in the pass on the way to her place with all of his men. And I'm sure the fact that she was hot and good looking didn't hurt the matter, but she played her wiles on David and pled with him not to kill her husband, who is a fool, she said. And I think Nabal even means fool, so it might not have been his real name, might have been the name for the story. And so David promises her that he will not kill Nabal. And they take all the goods that she brought them. Well, then she returns back home. And when she tells Nabal what happened, you know what, Nabal? David and all his dudes were here. They were going to cut you to pieces and kill you. And I stayed them off. I gave them what they were asking for. And Nabal had through an absolute, he was livid and pissed. And he popped his cork, and man, he was so angry. It says he busted a nut, basically, and he had a stroke, and he falls over and dies. And that's this scene. He had a goblet of wine spilled on the ground with a stroke. And then what happens? Oh, the beautiful part of the story is David takes Abigail for a wife. So now David has 3 wives, as far as we know by this point, because Saul had given him his daughter Micah as a wife when he defeated the giant, which tells you he wasn't a kid. He was a young man. Then David, of course, when he fled from Saul, he took Saul's queen with him, or she'd have been put to death. And so he's got 2 wives, and now he wants Abigail. So he marries Abigail. This is all pre-Bathsheba stuff. And so there's the beautiful love story of David and Abigail, how they met. And that's how I met your mother. So that's that one. Now we jump from David. There's more cards about David, but we jump from those into Elijah as part of this deck as well. And Elijah reigned during the year, or was prophet during the years of Ahab and Jezebel. Yes, that Jezebel. And it's hard to see these on, the contrast is really raised when you're looking at them on the screen here, but there's King Ahab and Queen Jezebel of Israel. And, hold on. Woo! Excuse me. Let me read this one. Ahab and Jezebel. Although a capable soldier, he was weak-willed, childish, and selfish. She was a manipulative queen from a foreign land who promoted false gods and attempted to exterminate God's prophets. Together, Ahab and Jezebel formed the most diabolical pair of monarchs ever to rule Israel. When Ahab became king of Israel, he married the daughter of the king of Phoenicia, Jezebel, who brought with her the false idols worshipped in her country. At her instigation, the Israelites destroyed Jehovah's altars and replaced them with altars to Baal, if you will. Ahab conspired with her to persecute the prophets of the true God, killing all but 100, who Obadiah, one of Ahab's court officials, hid in 2 caves. Their evil culminated in the false accusation and murder of an innocent man. And Ahab admired Naboth's vineyard and asked to buy it, but Naboth declined. Jezebel, seeing Ahab pout about it, arranged to have Naboth falsely accused of blasphemy and executed. So this is just a little bit about them in the biblical story and what they were like. And there was who was it that was it Ehud? He was the general of the armies or something. The end of Jezebel came at one point where she was up on the balcony and they were attacking, and he, the Israelite general, he picked her up and he threw her over the balcony down to the street below, the courtyard below, where she was trampled by horses and died. That was the end of Jezebel. It was an interesting story. So that's that card. Another very famous scene in the life of the prophet at this time was Elijah. And Elijah was really hard against Ahab and Jezebel. And there was a scene on Mount Carmel. Now, there's only one Mount Carmel in Israel. If you look at a map of Israel, look at the west coast along the Mediterranean. There's a little, as you go up the west coast, if you're looking at me here, you'd be traveling this way, up the west coast, and there's this little knob that sticks out of Israel, and it continues to go north. Well, that little knob is where Mount Carmel is. It's right there. It's a big hill, if you will, a small mountain. And there was an altar to the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. You can go there today. You can see where this stuff takes place. There it is. Jehu drove his chariot over her after she was thrown from the balcony. Not Ehud, it was Jehu. It was a name like that. Ehud, Jehu, Ehud. So, haven't reviewed that in a long time. There was this confrontation that Elijah had with the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. And he kind of struck a deal. He said, whoever's God can bring fire from the sky and consume the offering on the altar, that will be the God whom Israel will worship. And so as the story goes, the prophets of Baal got to go first, and they're circling the altar. Then they're crying out to Baal to take the offering, and nothing happened. Meanwhile, you got Elijah in the background mocking them. He must have been pretty confident. Mocking them. Oh, maybe your God has gone to the bathroom, he says, or he's gone to the privy, I think he says. Or maybe he's gone fishing or visiting, and he's not hearing you right now. Yell louder. Maybe you need to wake him up. So Elijah's mocking them from the background. This goes on for hours. Well, nothing happens. Now it's Elijah's turn. And what does Elijah do? He has the servants go get, and remember, there's a drought going on too. So there's a big question about that, a drought. Yet he has all the servants go down and get pitchers of water, like big, the big amphora full of water, and bring them up and douse the altar. And at the same time, dig a trench around the altar and fill it with water. He sends them back a couple of times to get water. Where are they getting this water from if there's a drought? Well, they're right on the Mediterranean. So he douses the whole altar and the sacrifice with water, digs a trench, fills it with water. And now it's his turn to call on his God. And in the Bible, you can almost read it between the lines where Elijah says to God, he says, now show these people who is God. And you can almost hear it in the way it's written. He says something about, if you don't do this, pretty much my ass is in a sling here. So show who you are. If you're going to do it, now's the time to do it. And as if God needed prompting like that. And so he calls on God, and what happens? There's a crack of lightning, and fire drops from the sky, consumes not only the sacrifice on the altar, but the altar stones. It laps up all the water, of course, and the altar stones, and burns them to a cinder. That's how strong this fire from God was. Here's Elijah in the front there calling down the fire, and in the background you see the prophets of Baal, all that. And then it says, and then for these 400 prophets of Baal that were there, it says that Elijah put them all to death with the sword. Now that tells you something too. There's no details about this, just that he did it. Well, one guy isn't going to pull out his sword and go, okay, all you 400, come on up here, form a line, I'm going to kill you all. No, remember it said there were at least 100 prophets that were still on the side of Jehovah. And then, of course, all their followers, people of Israel. So I think what happened, this was being done in front of the people. And the people went, oh, no, you don't, to the prophets of Baal, and they took them all out that day. And then, of course, came the eventual end of Ahab and Jezebel. But that's that card. And that is an old illustration from the deck, but it didn't look anything like that. And I had to reconstruct that, this one, and I totally reconstructed all the fire coming from heaven and the altar and the people and all of that. So that was one of the newer cards. And this is one I didn't do much to other than add a new sky to it and lighting. This is the old illustration. It's when Elijah down here in the corner runs alongside. Sorry for the reflection, folks. He runs alongside the chariot of Ahab, and they have this conversation. And this is after this confrontation with the prophets of Baal, and suddenly it's going to rain, and the drought ends. And they're rushing to get back, and you can see the lightning in the sky and the rain starting to come. There's that. This is the card of Elijah himself. So we introduce the, I got that reflection. We introduce Elijah to the deck of cards with this one. So that's that second set of cards, or that second pack. So right now I've got 16 cards of the deck that are here. And I've got the whole deck. I might open a couple more while we're still doing this because it's kind of fun to talk about these. But this is what these cards look like. Again, for those of you joining us later, I am the illustrator and the designer of this set of cards. And it's a redo of a set that we did 30 years ago. And it's 30 years ago this month. They came out around Thanksgiving, November of 1993. So now this is the whole new deck. You can get these. Go to ancientheroesofthebible.com, ancientheroesofthebible.com, and you can see how to buy the cards. And you can get them for $8 a pack, $7.95. And this is what the packs look like, these foil packs of cards. And it's kind of set up as this collector's set for kids. A lot for churches and Bible schools and things like that they can take these cards and use them for kids, so they can buy them by the pack. You can collect the whole deck. You can buy the whole deck for $48. You get however many of those packs it takes. If there's 8 in a pack, what are they? 8 times 8 is 48. 8 times 8 is that correct? No, 5 times 8 is 40. So 6 packs would give you the whole deck, but I think you get enough to make the whole deck. Here, let's open this one as long as we've got it. We'll open a third one. I'm going to open a lot of these anyway till I have the whole deck, and I'm going to put them in put them in sleeves and in a book. Now, here's the new set of 8 here in this pack. And a lot of this is Elijah and Elisha. And then there's some other, there's 3 other cards in this that are not character cards. And that's these 3. So you can take this card. It's just the checklist. So you look at this, and it's got the checklist to show you all the cards that you can get. All right. And then there's a couple of things that they're doing with the website called Warfare and Journey, the Journey. And these are cards that it's got QR codes on these. And you can take these and go to places on the website that talk about the journey of the Bible and also a game that's being developed right now. But these will take you to places on... and I did, let's see if you can see this better. It's a little bit dark. It's a darker piece of art. But the lights here are really hard to work with. Hold on. See if I can do it that way. There you go. So it's got King Saul on the left and David on the right. And this one's called Warfare. It's just a fun game that they're constructing for the website, online game. And then the journey, of course, to go find out more about the story of the Bible. And then your checklist. Then also in this pack were 5 more cards. And these are Elijah and Elisha. And this one's called a still small voice. Remember that term, and there was the still small voice. Elijah hiding from Ahab and Jezebel. And he's up in the cave on the mountainside, the cleft in the rock. And he hears the still small voice of God. So there is Elijah in the cave, or the cleft of the rock. And this says, fearfully hiding in a cave, Elijah pondered recent events. He had rooted out false religion, a drought had ended, and during a miraculous 15-mile run, he temporarily convinced King Ahab to worship Israel's true God. But after these tremendous victories, Jezebel, Ahab's manipulative queen, promised to have Elijah murdered. Elijah fled to Judah, south of Beersheba. He collapsed under a broom tree. Exhausted, he prayed for death. And after an angel awakened him, fed him twice, Elijah traveled 40 days to Mount Horeb. After a night in the cave, Elijah heard God ask, "What are you doing here?" Dejected, Elijah replied, "Lord, I preached fervently, but Israel rejected you and killed your prophets. Now they want to kill me. I am the only faithful man left." God told him to stand outside the cave. A violent wind tore the mountain. An earthquake shook its foundation. The fire exploded, but God did not speak through them. At last, a gentle whisper calmed Elijah, reassuring him of God's blessing. That still small voice. I had there's something interesting here on this issue of a still small voice. Let's see. For this book, The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim, this was my first book with New Page Books. Came out in 2012 is when this book released. So 11 years ago. But somebody that I really respected, who had written a book on this stuff, Gateway of the Gods, Craig Hines, he wrote a foreword for me in this book. Let's see. I want to see where he says this. He talks about squaring the circle in his foreword, but he talks about the still small voice. I'm trying to see where that is here. I thought it was a great. Well, here. This is Craig Hines' foreword to my book, The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim. He says, the first drop of water splashed atop his head unexpectedly, causing him to cease his work and glance upward. He wiped the sweat from his brow, his tired eyes struggling to focus on the darkness forming in the heavens above. Another raindrop fell against his skin, and his gaze returned to the ground. His own reflection rippled chaotically across the newly formed puddles at his feet. As a crowd began to gather around him, his trembling hands reached for his tools and collected them in his arms. It was time. "Is this your Lord's great deluge, Noah, you madman?" yelled one of the bystanders, inciting the rest of the mob to laugh mockingly amongst themselves. Suddenly, a loud crack of thunder boomed and cut through the crowd's licentious laughter. They were instantly silent as uneasiness began to rise up within their guts, much like the pools of water growing beneath their feet. Noah rushed toward the ark, the anxious voices of his family calling to him from within the wooden structure. His progress was hindered as he trudged through mud and water. Although his sandals became lodged in the mire, he slipped his foot free and continued to run. He refused to be deterred by the unrelenting shouts and panicking cries of his pursuers. His sons hurried him aboard and began to draw the lodge door closed. From inside, Noah could hear the screams of the people he once called friends, their bloodied fists clawing and thumping against the wooden structure. He rested himself against a support beam, desperately trying to catch his breath. Before long, he collapsed to the floor in a sobbing mess. The cacophony was too horrible to bear and threatened to drive him to madness. Yet he soon found relief as it was drowned out by the pounding of the rain, as though millions of stones were pummeling the rooftop. He wanted to help, but he knew it was too late for them, for it had been too late long before the rains had ever started. Much like the ripples created by the rainwater in Noah's tale, the events surrounding this epic legend have flowed throughout history and on through the present day. However, just like the natural side effect of such ripples, the crystal clear images and reflections produced by the still waters of the past have now become distorted and difficult to comprehend. We are expected to make sense of it all, but centuries of repression, persecution, political agendas, wars, and even the mundane activities of the world have washed away the clues and data necessary to bring clarity to the situation. For example, many people insist that they are familiar with the story of Noah's Ark, but the vast majority of them know only the simplified and largely censored version that they were taught as children. Ancient accounts describing the mating of angelic beings with humans, the birth of their hybrid offspring known as the Nephilim, and the disastrous consequences of such affairs are, if you will, pardon the expression, completely alien to most people. Week after week, the faithful flock to places of worship to hear sermons and receive holy guidance in their lives, yet some of the most significant details or implications of the story are never brought to their attention. Most of these individuals will be happy to tell you about Noah, his family, the constructions of the ark and how each animal were on board and so on, but their enthusiastic countenance will quickly diminish into one of bewilderment at the mention of the Nephilim. The Nepha what? Exactly. It is precisely this reason that a book like this needed to be written and so on. This is not the passage I'm thinking of from him, but he does end his piece. He says, similarly to how my book served as an inspiration and piece of the puzzle for Scott, it is my wish that you will also find the same excitement and curiosity within the following pages. You may be holding another piece of the puzzle and not even realize it, only to discover that it finally makes sense after reading The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim. Like Noah, be vigilant and mindful of the ripples. Recognize the patterns and you will find your answers. Together we may be able to solve the riddle of our past so that we may ultimately fulfill our destiny. Square the circle. And that was Craig Hines. I'm thinking of probably something I wrote as opposed to what he wrote there when I'm talking about that still small voice. But it's interesting that I end the book by talking about squaring the circle. That was in Craig's foreword. I end the book by saying the big question is in asking yourself what you can and cannot believe. And the greatest responsibility we all have is squaring the circle. There it is. And I talked somewhere about the still small voice of God. And that's all I was thinking of when I was talking about that. Why I went to Craig Hines, because that's where I thought it was. But it's not. So there you go. Anyway, so back to these cards. I think a great topic. It's a fun topic because, I'm promoting the cards, but I'm not up here going wahoo. Go buy them. You can buy them if you want them. $8 a pack. They come like this, or $48 for the whole set. Comes in packs like this. But I just wanted to show some of these off. Here is the widow of Zarephath, who is part of Elijah's story. There's the widow and her story. And we've got Elijah calling his successor Elisha. He went to the fields and called Elisha to come and follow him. You've got the parting of the Jordan River with Elijah's mantle or his sash. Then you've got Elijah's fiery ride, which there's been all kinds of speculation about what that might be other than just the power of God. But there's Elijah being taken up in the fiery chariot and Elisha looking on. So that's in that pack. Let's open another one. These are all going into a book anyway. I'm going to have some that I want to keep, but some that I won't. Let's see. Some I won't open if I get the whole deck before I open them all. This is one of the newer cards I illustrated, and we did a show on this not long ago. Deborah, the woman of flame. When I illustrated this card, and I looked up more about Deborah and Barak in the Old Testament, it calls her the wife of Lapidoth, and in the Scripture. And now there you can see it's a darker illustrated card, a lot of pen and ink there, and Deborah, the woman of flame. Here, I'll read this one. I helped write the back of this one with some of the newer information about her that we didn't have in the original card. And her dark, penetrating, prophetic eyes and the wisdom of her counsel attracted the people to the palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, where she held court. So the Bible says that Deborah, a judge over Israel, this is before the time of the kings, that she would prophesy at a palm tree between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. That's where people would come and see her. And Deborah the prophetess, called Eshet Lapido, or Lapidat. Eshet Lapidat in the Hebrew. The woman of flame, resolved disputes, passed judgments, and uttered the fiery words of Yahweh. She was known far and wide for her fairness and equality, and Israelites sought Deborah for her wisdom and because she could discern God's purpose and proclaim divine truth. She fired up the Israelites over their near servitude and oppression under the rule of the Canaanites, not the Palestinians, the Canaanites. There was no Palestine. And the people were dejected and afraid. Their hope for deliverance had vanished. Deborah, however, roused her nation from its lethargy and despair to raise an army and revolt against their oppressors, the Canaanites, led by their king Jabin and his general Sisera. The odds against the Israelites were daunting. Jabin had 900 iron chariots and had cruelly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. And so she was called the woman of fire. It calls her the wife of Lapidoth. That is what it was edited to read in the English, the wife of Lapidoth. When in actuality, it doesn't mean she was anyone's wife. It meant that she was a woman, and a woman of fire, Lapidoth. And so the fiery messages, the fiery personality, and the way she fired up Israel. So I rendered her this way for this deck of cards. I had lost the original card, just showed her face in kind of a semi-profile and a blank background. And it was pretty bland and drab as far as I was concerned. And I said, we got to spice this up. And we couldn't find the art anyway. And so I had the original art, but I didn't want to rescan it and use it because it was just her face. So I did this as the wife of Lapido, or the woman of Lapido, the woman of flame. Then I've got the picture of Deborah and Barak. This is what's on the package. We used that illustration for the packages. And so there is Deborah and Barak, her general. And that's an interesting story, too. She said, God, I want you to take an army and go fight this general. She says, I'm not going to go unless you come along with me. And meaning he wanted the presence of the prophet there. And she said, I'll come. She said, but because, the women are going to take the day in this one. And sure enough, she gets the credit. And he goes, I'm fine with that. You take the credit. You're the woman of flame. I'll just wield the sword. And then there was also a woman named Jael who, as they were routing the armies of the Canaanites, the general Sisera had run into this tent to hide, and it was the tent of Jael. And she gave him milk and honey and soothed him, told him to take a nap. He's exhausted. And as he's sleeping, she drives a tent peg through his temple into the ground and kills the general. So Jael became the hero as well. Oh, here's some more David cards in this one. These are some of the ones I like. This is when Samuel anoints David, when David's still a shepherd. Now that crook, that's from the old illustration 30 years ago. It's probably not what they had. They had a stick that they used, not a crook like that, a modern shepherd's crook. But I used it in the illustration back then. I liked it. If anything, I should have just taken the curve off the top and made it the stick, ended the stick where the curve starts. So that's all the shepherds used back then. But that's Samuel the prophet anointing David. And then this is one of my favorite new cards. I had a picture of King Saul, and I did not like it. I'd look at the old deck, even over the years, and I thought, I wish I'd illustrated that better. And so I re-illustrated King Saul. And so this is the illustration of King Saul for the new deck. And I've got him with his spear sitting on his throne. And by this time, he's, according at least to Samuel, he's starting to lose his touch with reality a bit. So there's King Saul. And he was the king of Israel. Then I've got his son Jonathan. He was so pissed off at David and Jonathan defending him that he tried to spear his own son. He threw his spear at Jonathan, missing him, of course. And that's where Jonathan warns David, you got to get out. Dad's lost his nuts. And then I've got, of course, Goliath, or if you'd pronounce it probably more properly, Goliath. Goliath of Gath, the city of Gath. And here's Goliath of Gath with his sidekick, his shield bearer, his weapons bearer. And I show Goliath at about, I did this proportionally, roughly about 9 foot tall. So that's what the 6 cubits in a span. When they talk about a giant 6 cubits, cubit was from here to here, and a span was from here to here. So they said Goliath was 6 cubits in a span, a cubit being roughly 18 inches. So he was anywhere from like 8.5 feet to 9.5 feet tall. So that's how I've rendered him here. And this, again, this is the old illustration from 30 years ago, just touched up. And I added the background. That is actually an illustration I did of the Valley of Elah, where this battle between Goliath and David was supposed to have taken place, with the little stream running through the bottom. So there's that. And the last one in this pack is, of course, David and the sword of Goliath. And that one I changed too. I had an old sword, a straight sword in the picture, and digitally I took that out and put in the kepish, the large kepish, like that. So David and the sword of Goliath. So there you go. There's some of that. And there's Sting behind me. That's a toy Sting. It's a one I got for Sam when he was a kid. It's plastic. My coffee is cold, officially. So let's see, how many packs do I have left? I think she sent me a bunch of packs. So I have some extras. So we don't have the whole deck here yet, but we've got that many so far that I've opened up. And so it's exciting for me to see. This is like getting that box of books when you've had a book published and you're looking it over. So you're getting to see it with me. I'll open one more pack here and see if we get anything different in this one. If I crack this baby open, oh, I think we already had this one. This might be the same 8 we had earlier. Yep. It's Elijah in the cave, and the other cards. We've already gotten that pack. So I'll set those aside. Let's see if we have any different ones in some of these other packs she sent me to finish off the deck. Now it's the luck of the draw here. Yeah, here we go. Here's a little more Moses coming up. So Moses and Gideon is in this set. And there's none of these, I think, are new illustrations, except I've added new backgrounds to them all because I did it in an oversimplified way back then, and my style was more simplified than it is now. So like with Moses, here's the card just talking about Moses. I've got him like this with the 2 tablets of the law in his hand, and I changed the background. And I changed the lighting on his face and his clothes and stuff like that. So that's the newer card with Moses. Same with this one. It was a blank background. Blank yellowy orange background. I just added clouds and a sky. Moses and the serpent. The brazen serpent on a pole. I've got, this is Gideon. Gideon's call. The angel calls out to him, Gideon, from the threshing floor or the wine press, or the threshing floor. So I put a little Israel landscape in the background, clouds in the sky, and the threshing floor, which didn't exist in the original. The wall was there, but then it was just a yellow sky with a sun in the sky. And this one, I always liked this one. This is Gideon by night and his men. They tear down the Asherah pole, the high place of worship, Baal and Asherah. And they tear it down and chop it up. So, Gideon and the fleece. Remember that story? We've got Gideon's men when God says, you choose the men that don't lay down to drink or scoop it up, that they stand and they do this and that and whatever. And that's the way he honed down his army. This was just, again, you had blank water and a blank sky, and I just added the background now. This one, I didn't really touch at all. This is from 30 years ago. This is Gideon spying on the other army, and he hears them talking. By the can you see Gideon and his buddy back in the hills up there, hearing them. And then this is one of my favorites of the original deck. I didn't do much to this either, other than I beefed up the background a little bit. Gideon victorious. It's when they're battling it out, and there was nothing in the background again on this one, so I added quick armies in the background and more smoke and stuff like that. So there you go. So there's those. So my deck is growing, and so I'll put these all in a book. But that was it wasn't really a topic. We don't have topics so much per se on Sunday, but since this just got walked in, it came yesterday and was sitting outside the door. And Raini did an all-nighter last night with scouts once a year, well, twice a year for the different age groups, but they have at the big scout facility, they do an all-nighter lock-in. And Raini went to that with Rowan. And they have big rock climbing walls there, which are pretty impressive, and all kinds of indoor stuff. It's a really great facility. So that's where she was. And she came in about 5 minutes before I started the show this morning. She came walking in, and she's tired. Of course, she sat up with a lot of the parents. You know, they set up cots and their stuff in the different corners, and you can go to bed, or you can play all night. And some of the kids will play all night. I've been to a couple of these with the kids. And but parents will set up a table. They'll sit and talk at the tables, let the kids play, do their thing. They'll talk half the night. So it's interesting. Raini was at the scout meeting last night, and she texted me and asked, what's that app that we use? I can't find it. I don't have it on my phone. What's it called? The Necrophonic. For the Spirit Box ITC app. And so they must have been talking about that stuff. I haven't heard any stories yet, because she is just freshly home with Rowan just minutes before I came down here and started the show. So more coffee. So what's everybody else got going on this morning? I hope you don't mind that I'm just showing off these cards. It's fun to see. And there's great stories with them. That's the purpose of these, was to have a vehicle for kids to be able to look at some of these Bible stories. I've only got one left? One left that is not opened. And I don't know if I have a whole set yet, so let's find out. I wanted to keep one unopened, but I don't think I have the whole deck yet. Let's see what these are. And maybe I do, and I just don't realize it, because I haven't counted them. Let's open this one up and see what's in here. Nope. This is the rest of the 48 in this deck, or this pack. So I got one duplicate pack is what I got. All right. So this last set of 8, Abraham was the number 1 card in the deck. So I've got Abraham of Ur of the Chaldees. And we've got Abraham leaving Ur with his wife, Sarah, when God called him out of Ur. And I've got the big ziggurat of Ur in the background, which you can still see today, the ruins of that. But I've got them heading out. This is one of the simpler ones. I don't think I did much to this card at all. I think this is how most of them look. When I said they had blank skies, yellow skies, they were kind of like this. And that's Abram's Great Lie. He looks like a warrior than an old patriarch. Yeah, he's not. I don't think the old patriarchs, we get these Bible characters in our heads, and we forget that they were real people. Abram was a warrior. He took some of his people to war, led them into battle. But he was a priest. And so I've got him with the look of how the men, but from what we know from sculptures and engravings, how some of the men looked. So here I've got him where God took Abram out and he said, count the stars. He says, and you'll get the idea of what I'm going to do with your offspring, the number of your offspring. So I've got Abram on the hilltop and the stars. And then I've got, remember we showed Lot. It was the first card I showed you this morning, Lot and the destruction of Sodom, Gomorrah, and the cities of the plain. Here's Abraham and Lot. When Lot says, look, I want to go down there. I want that land down there. And so he goes and takes it. And Abraham is granting him his leave. And this was one of the new cards I made. We couldn't find the card of Hagar. And we spoke about her on the show, Hagar, who was the servant of Sarah's. Once Sarah was prophesied by God that she'd be giving birth to a child, and she's already in her late 90s. She's like, and remember the length of people's lives back then. She's like, nah, this ain't going to happen. She never had a child. And so she had Abraham go have sex with Hagar, her servant, who became pregnant. And we lost this card. I couldn't even find the artwork, so I redid this one from scratch. So there is Hagar, and very pregnant. And she gives birth to Ishmael. And there's a lot of strife between her and Sarah, of course. And there's a story there. I've got Abram, same Abram, visited by the three men who were angelic. And it said, one was like unto the Son of God, was the phrase they used. And then, of course, I've got the story of Abram going to sacrifice. God asked him to sacrifice his son Isaac on Mount Moriah, which is where the Dome of the Rock sits now, where the Temple of Israel has sat for centuries before that. And that is where that event took place. So there is, I believe, the whole deck of cards we've got right there. So you can, and of course the stories are all very cool. I think my personal liking, I would have gotten a little meatier and a little more controversial with the writing, because I like that kind of stuff. You know, the way I do shows on this stuff. But Terry softened the tone just a little bit. She didn't want them to be so controversial, as she wanted kids to get the story, the main story behind the cards. And so there you go. That's the whole deck of Ancient Heroes cards. They don't come in a special tin. I think eventually we're going to do a tin like one of these. That's why that's even sitting down here when I was talking to Terry about it, where we get a tin that's made and we print it up to where you can put all your cards in that tin. This one's too small for this deck, but I can't even store them in there. But something like that is what we want to do for the deck of cards. That's a Pokemon, of course. Highly expensive. We didn't do it this first round on these. Just wanted to see how these were going to go this time around. So there's a limited run of these. And all these packs, as I've shown you, You can buy them over on their website, ancientheroesofthebible.com. And you can buy these by the pack, $8 a pack. Or you can buy the whole deck for $48. And you'll get a bunch of packs like that. So there you go. Here's the whole deck of cards. And she sent me this little, I think she sends these along so you can actually put the deck in there. If you're a card collector, you've got the old deck is that I have is still all in sleeves where you get 9 cards that you can insert on these cellophane sleeves and display both sides of them. And I had those all in a 3-ring binder. I think Flynn has those up in his bedroom. Oh, no. These should just slide right in there. And they're not. I'm fumbly with this kind of stuff. I always go, Rainy, will you do this, please? Because I can't do it, ever. I get the edges caught, the corners caught, and then it biffs a corner up, or there you go. So there. I don't know if she just sent that for me or if she's got these for people who buy the cards. You get these little pouches to put them in. You can also get the cellophane. I don't think I have them here. I used to have them here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Flynn has them up in his room. The old deck. And if I had that here, I would show you that. If I prepared that, I'd show you what the old deck looked like compared to the new deck. So there you go. AncientHeroesOfTheBible.com. You can go and get yourself some packs. And I think they're cool. They turned out really cool. And there's still a missing card. My daughter dropped one somewhere. Maybe she didn't. And she just thinks she did. Because it landed somewhere around here, and I'll find that later. So there. And that just hit me right before I came on the show. Right as I was coming on the show. So anybody, if you want to talk about anything this morning, let me know what's on your mind. I just took an hour and a half to show you that deck of cards. And what's going on in your world? How is your day going so far? How's your weekend going so far? So, yeah, it's cool storage. The little bags are cool storage. The books that you can flip through are great storage, too. It's a great way you can get a nice 3-ring binder, and you put these plastic clear sheets that have 9 slots for the cards, front and back. You can see them, so you can just put them in. You can flip through the whole deck. It's pretty good. I'm coming back. I'll listen to the local news. Okay. See you, Matthew. So, yeah. There you go. Informal show today. I'll probably talk about these cards again during the week on Intrepid Radio, but not as a whole hour thing. Probably for a couple of minutes and show them off. So how about this? Let's take a little break. I'm going to go get some coffee. My coffee is cold because I talked the whole time. Let's just leave this up, and I'll run the little Ancient Heroes ad since we're right here on top of it. And I'm going to go warm up my coffee. And if I'm lucky, I might even find that, well, is that going to work? Where's my mouse? My mouse is not coming up. Is that because I have the other one on? Oh, that's because the other one's on. It's conflicting. Even though the other one's not quite working yet. Just chores, says Jason Patrick. All right, what's going on with my mouse? Now my mouth. Is my mouse? Nah, the light's on. But it's not coming up. So I can't bring up anything yet because of that. I don't think it's out of battery. I think it conflicted with... No, this is the new one. Hold on. That's where I went wrong. This is the old one. All right. That's why. This is configured for the old one. There we go. So 10% rule on that mouse, Scotty. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I've got to see if I can get that working. Hopefully it'll work. I just spent like $37 on that mouse. The replacement Apple mouse, wireless. So I think I just have to open up the. I have to open up the Bluetooth on the computer here to get that one to work. So I will be right back and I'll warm up my coffee. I'll be right back. Everybody, hang tight. Don't go away. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, I'm back. Even though I'm not back over there yet, I'm back. I'm coming. All right. Now, you tell me Raini isn't an amazing wife. Here she was gone all night at this all-nighter for a youth event with the scouts. She comes home. She looks really pretty, but she comes home. She's tired. She says, I'm tired. I'm going to go lay down. Okay. I go upstairs just now to get coffee. She made bacon. I said, wow. I said, you're up all night long. You come home and you make bacon. That's a wife. So, all right. I do not have the old cards. My son said he doesn't have them. They're down in here somewhere. They're in a box or they're on a shelf somewhere. I have no idea where they be. So that is a point of interest. I just show some of the old cards. So, I think I did have, however, I showed you a couple of these before. Remember, this set was a whole reworking of an old set that we had done a long time ago, 30 years ago. And I've just updated them, and my style has dramatically changed in those days, in that 30 years. But in some ways, you can still tell it's my work. It's my stuff that I drew 30 years ago. And so I've got some cool, I did a couple of side-by-sides of the old cards. Let's see. That's new. That's the old one. Excuse me. I am going to see the redos. There you go. There's Moses. And there's Sarah. Thought I did one more. Maybe not. Foil wrappers. Updated files. I'll show you one of these. Maybe even both of them. I don't think it lets me select both. Nope, just one at a time. So here we go. If I open this one, and I'll show you. And this is all I did. Hey, Randall Flagg, good to see you. Susie Q, good to see you. I haven't said good morning to many people yet. Morgan Snow, how you doing? And Jason Patrick, good to see you. By the way, here is the Moses from 1993 on the left and 2023 on the right. So you can see how I have altered the deck. You can see the old logo up in on the left side. You can see how blocky that looks compared to the updated logo on the right. Background of the cards about the same, just newer art. And then you can see how I illustrated them way back then, 30 years ago, and how I've changed that now. You can look at things like even the face of Moses there and the lighting, and how I've touched some things up in there. So, yeah, now you want bacon, Susie. There it is. So that's one of them. And I think I only did a couple of these just to show the side-by-sides. There's also the one with Abram with his wife Sarah up on the donkey, and they're heading out of Ur. And that is this one. I'll call this one up too. And it just shows you how we took a deck that was the old stuff that we did 30 years ago. What is with the rug under my lately? It doesn't look like it's moved, but it's blocking the wheels of my chair. Here's the other one. And this is, here you go. Now, this is what I meant by on the left when I'd say it just had sky with a sun in the background, orange, yellow. That's what the original card looked like. So without doing much else, I touched up her face a little bit, some of the lighting a little bit, and the shadows and things like that. But then I added this background. And so I put in the ziggurat and put in some other people and rocks and things and stuff like that, just to juice it up a little bit, make it look a little better than it looked 30 years ago. So that's a lot of what I did in refurbishing the cards, revitalizing them for current day. So there you go. That's what was done. So bacon, yeah, Raini. I thought I smelled something coming up the stairs, and I wasn't recognizing bacon until I opened the upstairs door, and it flooded in. And I went, oh, bacon. You cooked bacon. So I think somebody's coming down the steps now. Hey.
What are you doing?
I'm on radio. What are you doing?
Why are you on radio?
I always am on Sunday mornings.
It's Saturday.
It's Sunday. Saturday was yesterday when you went to your event. Well, come on over and be on as long as you're down here.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you to take me somewhere, but since
Where do you need to be taken? We're almost done here for the day. Where do you need to go?
me and Bentley want to go to Holiday. I have money.
Okay. I have no money. I have just paid
I have money.
mortgage.
I have money.
I've put out I'm like all the rest of you. You know, we just put out like $3,500 in mortgage and bills, and we got $1.50 left. So,
Is there anything on this?
no, that's an old dead card. That was from when I was at Quick Trip.
What about this one?
Nope. Just checking all my old cards. I got old cards I just pulled from my wallet. Anything on that card? No. Anything on that card? No. Those are old cards, updated cards.
Well, I have $7.
So you've got $7. All right.
Yeah,
Let's
and
go spend it.
Well, we have to go to.
What are you going to
Bentley's
buy me?
house. We have to go to Bentley's house first.
Okay. What's you need to get money?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be ready in. Give me a few minutes to wrap up.
So
And,
20 minutes. Ow! Wow.
Tops.
Liar.
Well, I'm always off by 11. So and it's now 17 minutes till 11. All right. So there's the squirrely kid. And the cat. Bob Saget, the cat.
I still like dogs more.
Mm-hmm. Me too. We did a show on that. Was it last week or last Monday? We did something on the show about how dogs are better than cats. People are better than reindeers. Sven, don't you know I'm right?
And tomorrow you have to take me back for my ear because now there's something else.
What's
Because
going on in it now?
It's
Is
doing
it infected?
It's doing the same thing,
Oh, okay.
but there's like different noises. There's like, it's weird.
Well, we've just got to get you in to see that specialist.
I think it's infected.
So, might be,
So
which would not be good.
we should go. We gotta go to urgent care tomorrow.
Why don't we go today?
Urgent care is not open on Sunday.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Hopefully you'll live till tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, folks. Yeah, the ongoing saga of my daughter's ear.
And it's both my ears are not too, not just one.
Both of them? All right. Yeah, that's why we got to get you in to see the specialist.
Yeah, but
So
we
that's
can't-
still a few weeks off.
We can't get until after Christmas.
I know. So, yeah, like many people, my kids, my one kid had tubes in the ears when she was little. She had to have those replaced 3 times. Now she's got hearing aids, mild hearing loss of some kind. And the other day it was bothering her, and then they found out it was loose. Excuse me. Wow, I'm just sneezing on the show, a storm today. And so they took it out. But they had to go see a specialist to get it taken out. But the specialist is 5 weeks out after Christmas. That's more than 5 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. And so we just went into the ER on Friday and said she was having pain in there. And they got the thing and they pulled it out. And the thing's only about that big. It was just, I thought it'd be bigger than that. And so anyway. The ongoing saga. What do you need, Bob? This is Bob Saget. Bob Saget, the cat. What are you doing? I don't like cats. I really don't. I don't like him. I like the individual cat. I'm not a cat person. Let's put it that way, right? And ever since he was little, we've always held him this way so we could hold him this way when he got old. And he's always liked it, right? There he is. Bob Saget, the cat. And I pet him too much like a dog sometimes. I'm like, hey. And he's like, John, you're a good boy, aren't you? He's an ass, but he's a good boy, too. You're just a young cat. You're a spaz. Yes, it's my spazzy cat. You gonna get down? So Bob Saget, the cat. There he goes. That was the deal, by the way. Kids wanted a cat, and I said, absolutely not. We're not getting another cat because we got old Oscar. And the deal was, okay, finally, I gave in. I said, you can have a cat, but I get to name him. We don't care, Dad, whatever you want to name him. So I named him Bob Saget. One word, Bob Saget. And they call him Bing Bong or something like that. So, and he's a spaz, absolute spaz. So what's everybody else doing? We're down, we're diminishing in viewers. That's because it hasn't been a big show today, not a big hot topic show. We could talk about Israel. We could talk about the way our country, for the first time ever, is a rising anti-Semitism, because we've been taught that Israel shouldn't defend itself. So that's going on out there. And you can use all the justifications you want to talk about Israel, their claim to the land, their ability to have made a country out of it. And yet you've got the Palestinians who want, the Palestinians are calling for a ceasefire. Hamas is, on behalf of the Palestinians. We need a ceasefire. Well, why do they need a ceasefire? The first question I'd ask is that a ceasefire for both sides? No, they just want Israel to do a ceasefire. They still believe, what do you believe about Israel? Well, they should be wiped off the face of the earth and all Jews should be killed. Their belief hasn't changed, yet they're asking for a ceasefire. Ceasefire, hold it. We're not changing our views, though. We still need to kill all Jews in the world. Well, there's not going to be a ceasefire for that. Israel has said, you return the hostages, every last one, and we'll discuss a ceasefire. This is what Hamas and radical Islam has done. They have convinced the world through their propaganda game that Israel is in the wrong. I would rise that we're seeing a rising anti-Semitism for the second time. Well, maybe that argument could be. You can come on and discuss that with me, Jason. That's a maybe. I don't think we had a huge rise in anti-Semitism in this country like we're seeing now. It's just more broadcast now. What would you plug in as the first rise of anti-Semitism in this country? Would it have been in alignment with Nazi Germany? What are you thinking, Jason? What's your first rise of anti-Semitism? And how the kids nowadays, until they are not pre-World War II. Okay, yeah, in the 20s to the 30s. It also coincides with the rise of Hitler. What did we see with? And we've only got a few minutes because I got to end in 10 minutes here. So maybe we'll talk about this at some point this week. But kids nowadays, I think Palestine needs to be free from the river to the sea is the chant that they say. The river to the sea. They want freed. Well, that's Israel, from the river to the sea. And so they want Israel eradicated. And students here in America, American kids, are chanting this because they've been brainwashed to believe that Israel is in the wrong, that Israel should not have attacked, that Israel is the oppressor, just like whites are the oppressor in America. It's what they've been taught. So there are great counters to that. Maybe we'll talk about that earlier this week. I saw a great one from Ben Shapiro, of all people. I got to see if I've got this. I'm going to tell you what he said. And I'm not sure. I don't think I saved this. I thought I saved it. And right now, Democrat activists have scaled the White House fence carrying a hostile nation's foreign flag, the Palestinian flag, and they're defying Secret Service orders. They're vandalizing federal property and rioting. Is that an insurrection? That's going on right now, matter of fact. Washington, D.C. What else have we got? Let's see. I wanted to see if Ben Shapiro, if what he had said is on here. And by the way, this just popped up. New York Times, Donald Trump leads Joe Biden in 5 of 6 key battlegrounds polled by the New York Times and Siena College. Leads by quite a bit if the election were to be held today. So there's that. I wanted to see if I could find this piece by Ben Shapiro. I may or may not be able to find it. What is this? Something I don't have time to look at. I stand for Israel. I stand with Israel, and I hope you all do too. Yeah, here you go. Never a legitimate question if Israel was occupying the land. There's a land of Israel, and it belongs to the Jewish people. Should they defend themselves, or should they not? And I think that they should defend themselves. They're responding to lies. If anybody doesn't know today that the land of Israel was Jewish from the very beginning of history, then there's no point in talking about it anymore. We're done. We're done apologizing. We're done explaining. Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people. Since the time of King David, since the time of Joshua, no more talking about it. Enough with the lies. Enough with all of these disingenuous questions. And no more apologies. Israel is not occupier. You can't condemn them for stealing the land. It's been 70 years since they moved in and became a nation. And it's a legitimate question, they say. There is a land of Israel, which there isn't a land of Palestine. It never existed. So there you go. That's how I'm going to wrap that point up for today with just a couple of minutes left. So let's see. I'm looking for Ben Shapiro, and I don't know if this showed up on his. What is his site? Anybody know the name of his site? His group, Ben Shapiro. Let's see if it comes up like this under a search. Ben Shapiro, official Ben Shapiro. He's got his. I can't think of the name of his organization for some reason off the top of my head. But if I go to his official site, maybe this is shown here, Palestine. Yeah. I don't think you're going to be able to hear this. This is the piece I'm talking about. Serious question. What is it? He says. She said, I'm not going to comment. She said something about Palestine, from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. And he says, here we go. He says, I appreciate the idea that the Jewish state should be wiped completely off the map. The containment of life, climate change, humanitarian aspects of life, 100 years, sure. And she says Palestine. He goes on and talks about and dismantles this whole idea that, and some of these students, this was a Harvard student that came up and said something to him about Palestine, and he says, you don't, he basically, without insulting her, he came up and said, your call for from the river to the sea is illegitimate. Here's why. And he went through, and I wish I had this as text so I could read it to you. But completely puts that to bed, and this whole notion. And this was at Cambridge, not Harvard. And so it's go look this stuff up. Where Ben Shapiro is at Cambridge. This is interesting. I'm going to get caught listening to this if I don't turn it off. So go look up Ben Shapiro on Instagram. Watch some of his recent videos, and you're going to hear some good debates going back and forth where he puts Daily Wire. Thank you, Susie. That's it. It's the Daily Wire. I was thinking Caller. There's something Caller that he's the Daily Wire, and you can go look that up too. So you see, he's 40 minutes map board explanation video. Okay, yeah, that's good. Of the rising anti-Semitism, yes, that's good, Jason. I don't want any more wars. Period. I don't either. Who wants war? Nobody. But if you're going to have what would you do, Susie? We don't want war. I don't think Israel wants war either. But what do you do when somebody's killing your people with terrorist acts? You got to go in and stop them. You're saying, we're stopping this. I liked Picard with the Borg in the movie First Contact. And he's in his office, his ready room. And he's talking about attacking them. And he says, the Borg have done this. And we fell back. They did this, and we fell back. They did this, and we fell back. He says, the line is drawn here. He says, this will be the line. And I think this is what Israel is doing. They're saying, we fall back. We always negotiate. But after killing our people, the line is drawn here. Hamas needs to be ended. There it is. And I get that. Nobody wants war. But sometimes you have to go to war to prevent war, which is a sad thing. I think what Israel is trying to do is prevent war for their future generations as much as is possible. Unless you believe biblical prophecy and they're going to be in war the rest of their existence. I just don't know. I don't know for sure what's true about any of that. So, because it hasn't happened yet. Isn't prophecy, is prophecy mean, is it like predicting the future? Here's the future as we see it from now, but you can change it because the future is malleable. It can be changed. You can move events around. Is there a prophecy that speaks of Armageddon? Can that be changed if we do certain things? I think we can. The future is always movable. And when they bring it here, I guess I won't have to do what we have to do. Yeah, we'll have to do what we have to do. That's it. And it's already here. So we keep hearing. So you got to watch out for what's already here. Folks, that's it. That's all we're going to do for today. It is now 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. I hope you enjoyed daylight savings time last night. You woke up an hour early today and found out, oh, you're not an hour early. You're awake at the same time. It's just an hour earlier. So be prepared for shorter days coming. Right now, the sun is up when we wake up now, as opposed to it being still a little dark when we woke up. And the days are getting shorter. We've got about 7 weeks, 6 weeks to 7 weeks, and we hit the shortest day of the year. And guess what? It's all uphill from there, or downhill, whichever way you want to look at it. Shortest day of the winter is December 21st, but that's not the coldest day of winter. We'll still have 3 months of winter after that up here. But the days will start getting longer again after December 21st. So there it is. I want you all to have a good day. You have the good rest of your weekend. And, we'll see you back here tomorrow night for Intrepid Radio at 9 p.m. Central Standard. And for now, you all just go and have a good day. Live long and prosper.